Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. In today's video, we're going to briefly analyze how Lacazette played a key role in Arsenal's comfortable win over West Brom. But before we get into the analysis, don't forget that we are giving away a Arsenal home Thomas Partey jersey as a special thank you for all your support in 2020, so make sure to check out that video. But when we break down the game and we do look at the board, we have Arsenal in a 4-2-3-1 with a Aubameyang slotting in on the left-hand side for Martinelli, and West Brom starting the game in a 4-4-1-1. We have West Brom in that 4-4-1-1 when they were looking to push forward, and that was based on the fact that Diangana would push high to peg back Bellerin, and we would see Furlong pushing forward from right back to try and peg back Aubameyang. O'Shea would hold his position a bit deeper, but if there was space for him to push forward, then he would try to get into advanced positions to peg back Saka. That ultimately leaves a 3v3 battle in midfield with Xhaka having to pick up Pereira, Ceballos tracking the forward movement of Gallagher, and Smith Rowe dropping off deeper to apply pressure to Sawyers. Out of possession, West Brom dropped off into a 5-3-2, with Diangana adopting a deeper position as a left wingback, and O'Shea was able to tuck in central to help out Ivanovic. But what we ended up seeing here was that Arsenal were able to find holes in that 5-3-2 through their fullbacks. Over on the right-hand side, Saka would occupy Diangana, and then that would allow Bellerin to push forward freely and force Gallagher out of position. Gallagher was tasked with closing down Ceballos, so if Arsenal were able to switch the ball out to Bellerin quickly, then he would be able to push forward until Gallagher came across. The only way that Diangana would be able to push forward was if Saka was adopting a narrow position ahead of O'Shea, and that would allow him the freedom to push forward to close down Bellerin. Over on the left-hand side, Aubameyang was tucking in narrow ahead of Ajayi, and that left space for Tierney to push forward to peg back Furlong as Phillips struggled to get across when he was in a narrow position ahead of Xhaka. So as you can see in that 5-3-2, Robinson and Pereira were dealing with the center backs, and if not, they were dropping off and trying to block off the lanes into Ceballos and Xhaka. But like I said, because they had that narrow three-man midfield, if Arsenal could simply get the ball out to the fullbacks, Tierney and Bellerin often had ample time and space to either create chances for their teammates or get themselves into attacking positions where they could cause a threat on goal. Over on that right-hand side, what we often saw was that if Bellerin could pull out Diangana, Saka would check in to pull out O'Shea, and then Lacazette would be able to spin across Ivanovic out into the channels. Or we would see Lacazette dropping deeper to pull out Ivanovic, with Bellerin pulling out Diangana, and then Saka would be able to dart into space across O'Shea to get onto the ball in that right channel. Meanwhile, on Arsenal's left-hand side, if Aubameyang shifted out to a wider position to pull out Furlong, Tierney was often having space to make underlapping or overlapping runs beyond Phillips, who took time to get out to him, to break forward and create 2v1s. Nevertheless, while Arsenal had several key performers throughout this game, it was Lacazette's all-round center-forward play, his ability to drift into the channels, drop off deeper to pull out Ivanovic to create space for his teammates, and his movement to get into good positions to score goals that made the difference. When we look to the first example, it's Lacazette receiving Tierney splitting pass between Sawyers and Furlong a few yards ahead of a stepping Ivanovic, and this is where we see Saka running off Diangana into West Brom's half. By the time Ivanovic applies tight pressure on Lacazette, the Arsenal striker is already in motion to split the West Brom centre back and Diangana to play Saka in a 1v1 situation with O'Shea. While Lacazette's splitting pass does provide an issue for West Brom as it places Saka in a 1v1 with O'Shea, but look at Ajayi as he's struggling to get across to provide support for his center back. However, O'Shea did well to force Saka to the outside, and he was only able to fire a tame low effort at Johnstone. When we look to another example, we see Ceballos clipping a first-time ball into the right channel for Saka running off O'Shea, but the key to this move is Lacazette checking into the ball towards the halfway line to drag out Ivanovic. Saka Saka receives Ceballos' first-time ball over Lacazette and Ivanovic in the right channel beyond O'Shea, and from this position he should freely break into the West Brom penalty area. However, Saka fails to take his first touch in full stride to break free on goal, so he's forced to take on O'Shea into the West Brom box, and that's where we see Aubameyang peeling off Ajayi towards the back post. While it's uncertain whether Saka's delivery was a shot or a cross, it did place Aubameyang in a clear goal-scoring position in the 6-yard box that he should have converted, and that all stems from Lacazette's movement. In the build-up to Arsenal's second goal, Smith Rowe receives Bellerin's square ball across Gallagher, which pulls out Sawyers towards the ball, and ahead of the Arsenal midfielder is Saka ahead of Diangana, and we need to focus on Lacazette occupying Ajayi. When Smith Rowe splits Gallagher and Sawyers for Saka dragging out Diangana, you could see Smith Rowe running off the West Brom midfielders, and at this moment, Lacazette is surrounded by all 3 center backs. Saka slides the ball across Diangana for Lacazette, who checks into the ball and splits O'Shea and Ivanovic stepping forward to ultimately take 3 West Brom defenders out of the game. But what's also key here is Smith Rowe's unmarked run into right half space beyond the West Brom center backs, as Sawyers and Gallagher fail to track this forward run. Lacazette's center back splitting pass for Smith Rowe places the Arsenal midfielder to create Saka's goal as Saka continued his run off Diangana and beyond Ivanovic for a tap-in from point-blank range. We could look to a moment where Tierney had enough time and space to slide the ball across Phillips and Furlong, and we see Lacazette shifting out to the left channel between Ajayi and Ivanovic. Lacazette drags out Ivanovic towards the left channel, but this time he's able to spin across the West Brom center back. But what's worrying here is both Furlong and Ajayi are simply ball watching rather than shifting over to provide cover. Lacazette breaks towards goal, and rather than attempting to pull the ball back to Saka and Smith Rowe, he forces Johnstone into a save from an extremely tight angle. And even when we look to the second half, although West Brom did shift into a 4-1-4-1, this was still about Lacazette's movement, whether it be him dropping off deeper into his own half to receive the ball and win fouls off Ivanovic, or his movement to get himself into good goal-scoring positions. Initially, what we see is Ceballos stepping into the West Brom half unmarked ahead of Phillips and Robinson after he spun away from Gallagher's instant pressure when he received the ball from Holding. And when Ceballos looks ahead, he witnesses Saka dropping towards the ball to pull out Ivanovic, and that's where you see Lacazette running off O'Shea's shoulder. Ceballos' clipped ball over O'Shea and Ivanovic falls to Lacazette in the West Brom box, which forced Johnstone off his line. But Johnstone does well to avoid overcommitting to the challenge with Lacazette and ends up forcing the Arsenal striker into a tough shooting angle in right half space to deflect his effort into the 6-yard box that O'Shea subsequently clears. And in the build-up to Arsenal's 4th goal, it stems from Lacazette dropping into his own third to receive a Maitland-Niles clearance in acres of space ahead of Ivanovic. And if we speed up the attack, Lacazette did slide the ball to Xhaka, who eventually shifted it out to Aubameyang to run at Ivanovic. And when he does that, we see Lacazette charging forward into West Brom's half beyond Gallagher and Robinson, while Smith Rowe occupies Sawyers. When Aubameyang slides the ball across Furlong for Tierney, we witness Smith Rowe's run across Ajayi to occupy the West Brom center back at the front post, and Lacazette continuing his unmarked run into the gap between Sawyers and O'Shea, who was forced to tuck into a narrow position. Furlong fails to get tight on Tierney, and the Arsenal left back receives enough space to wrap the ball around Furlong and Ajayi, who was occupied by Smith Rowe, for Lacazette in the 6-yard box as he completed his run by positioning himself goal side of O'Shea because Sawyers also stopped tracking, and that allowed Lacazette an easy tap in to kill off the game. Hi everybody, thanks for watching, and subscribe here for your latest tactical analysis and daily commentary on the InnerViews show. And if that wasn't enough, don't forget you could find more organic, unfiltered soccer/football analysis on the InnerViews podcast, the best soccer/football podcast in the world, available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and any Android apps on your Android devices.